I'm Luke Story. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. Harry the Healer, here we are, dude.
We're here. Thank you, Luke, for having me on.
So good to see you.
This is great.
I'm glad we got to fit this in your busy schedule.
Thank you.
Traveling around, healing the freaking world.
That's what I do, man.
Yeah. It's just, it's so fun to have the opportunity to work with people that I interview and befriend them as I have with you. And so it's always just easier and more of a continuation of what we'd be talking about anyway.
Right.
So I don't even think of it as an interview, but anyway, here we are. So let's start back at the beginning a bit. I find your story and all of the things you've been through and where you ended up as the embodied person you are now. But you grew up in a ranch in New Mexico and then on an Indian reservation. How did that help shape you?
Well, the first part of my life, we lived on this big ranch. So it was a lot of wide open space. And I'm the sixth child. My parents had 5 children. And then they went 10 years and had me. My mom always said, honey, you were an accident. And I said, no, I was a surprise, Mom. There's a difference. So,
right. Good distinction.
Very important. So we lived way out in the middle of nowhere between Santa Fe and Las Vegas, New Mexico on this ranch, beautiful ranch. And how it shaped me is, I spent a lot of time alone and with a lot of animals and in the mountains. So I had experiences that I thought everybody had. I thought it was normal. I thought every kid is probably having these experiences. I never really thought about it, that I was the only one having them. And then we lived on the reservation near Gallup, the Navajo reservation. And that was really, really shaped a part of my life because it took me back to, my Indian roots, which is, the Native American Indians honor everything, honor the earth, honor the mythological story of the buffalo is that, the buffalo offered themselves up as sustenance because the Native Americans honored every part of the buffalo and used every part, from the meat to the bones to the horns to the hide. And so really that shaping of me to honor everything in life, honor myself, honor the earth, and honor our process here in this dimension on planet Earth. So it shaped me a lot.
I'm wondering what it was like to be a kid in a rural area in New Mexico and discover you were gay. When did that happen? And was that difficult for you to work through?
Oh, yeah. I developed a lot of traits of hiding myself, because 2 hairy-legged boys liking each other in New Mexico, in a cowboy family, it's pretty taboo. It's like Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
So, I hid a lot of parts of myself. So when I think I always knew I was gay, but I had a girlfriend and she was a twin and I was friends with both of them. And I was over at their house one night and he locked us in his parents' bedroom and showed me a thing or two. And I think I discovered, I think I'm gay.
Wow.
So it takes a lot of acceptance, acceptance, I think, for all of us, no matter what we face in life, it's acceptance, for all parts of ourselves. And, in the world, where did it come from that it's not okay to be gay? It's like, it doesn't matter who we love. It matters that we love. Souls have no gender. So we're capable of loving anyone if we choose to, if we really evolve through the layers, I think it's only the Bible that tells us it's not meant to be Adam and Steve. It's supposed to be Adam and Eve.
That's funny.
Because homosexuality's been all through time. I mean,
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci, had been straight, he would have painted the Sistine Chapel white with a roller,
Right.
It wouldn't have been the same,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that, I guess, was part of your gift in really learning how to cultivate self-acceptance and embracing uniqueness, because you're a very unique human in the best way. But I think why I asked that question is I'm always just interested in the process that people had to work through, especially when they're young, because even if you kind of fit the more traditional mold of a person, which I never did. I mean, I wasn't gay, but I might as well have been because I was such a freak to all the other kids in school.
You were queer.
Yeah,
you were unusual.
Totally.
You were
totally. Real fucking queer. Real weird. Yeah. I mean, in the best way. But, it was, I think, a similar kind of learning experience for me. I just had to kind of, in a sort of rebellious way, just embrace those things that other people found hard to accept. And eventually, through a lot more work, that led to an acceptance. But I think that feeling when you're young of not fitting in, even when you do fit in, is pretty strong for most of us. But when you're in an area like that, I think I reflect too, because I lived in Colorado for a bit in a really small town when I was a teenager, and I had earrings and wore eyeliner and had big 80s punk rock hair and leather jackets. And there was like 2 kids in the whole town, me and one other kid that looked like that,
Yeah. Oh, we would have been friends.
Yeah. You're kind of always looking over your shoulder, waiting for one of the jocks or preppies to kick your ass. And, luckily I was never subjected to violence, but there was a fair amount of ridicule and things like that. And I think that's just, the nature of small-minded, less cultured people to make that more difficult.
Yeah.
But perhaps you were brought into this body with your preferences and way of being in that place because it was a perfect karmic opportunity for you to get that lesson, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at one point, I said, God, how did you put me in this family, in this cowboy family? I'm sophisticated, I'm worldly, and here I am in this. And then I really got it. I accepted it and I got it. I couldn't have been any other way. It was such a gift coming through that way because I got to experience unconditional love, for myself. That's the thing that I feel like we all incarnated here for, is to learn how to love ourselves totally, fully, completely, and unconditionally. So however we come to that, and we're always trying to fit in. Too many of us are trying to fit in, and we can't fit in. We can only be unique. We're all unique. All 7.4 billion or whatever people, how many people there are on this planet. We're all unique. We're like snowflakes. We're all unique. And we can't fit in. We can't be like another person. We can only be ourselves. And once we learn that, acceptance is the first tool that I learned, accepting self, and then allowing, just a state of allowing is absent of any negative vibration. Just allow oneself to be. It's a process, though. It certainly was difficult. I have to say, I found a lot of heartache, and you get to plow through it, and really learn how to accept yourself. It wasn't easy.
And what eventually led you into spirituality, the healing arts, going to Peru to study with Shaman, and then eventually becoming a shaman? What were some of the key touch points, teachers or teachings along the way, whether it was a book, a guru, a meditation technique, yoga? What were some of the stepping stones that, moved you toward where you are now?
When I was 17 and we lived on this, my parents raised racehorses, and I became friends with this girl, and she was doing TM meditation. And I said, oh, I'd like to try that. And so I began meditating, and it really opened up a whole world for me. And then I moved to California, and that opened up a whole new world. That's when I really slid out of the closet out here in California, because you could be free. You could be much more free than in New Mexico. It's much more accepting out here. But I started meditating, and I think I've always been spiritual. I think it's just something. My mom always told me that I was always a loving person, you know, and it was just natural for me to be spiritual. You know, most people say we're human beings having a spiritual experience. We are the spiritual experience. Look, Luke, we're sitting here. We're two human beings. We're energy in motion. We're energy. We're being able to communicate right now. We have a voice box, two little vocal folds that go together, and we can make a sound and translate, you know, meaning so that we resonate or communicate with each other, you know? So, you know, we're such a phenomenon, and there's so many intricate parts to being a human being and accepting and really being spiritual, you know, all of life is spiritual, all of life.
And what led you to Peru to start investigating shamanism and plant medicines?
I really wanted to learn like advanced techniques as a human being, you know, like the secrets to the universe. Like, yeah. And I was very drawn to Peru because of Machu Picchu and all the things there. So I wound up just going on a spiritual mystical journey, you know, and going to Lima and going to the Temple of the Sun and the Moon, and then going to Nazca and really experiencing phenomenons in the world. Yeah, I just studied with different shamans, and every shaman is unique. There's no two shamans alike. It's like human beings. The shamans were amazing and had different gifts and, you know, shared different things. And I was just fascinated with it. I was what I call on fire. I think I'm always on fire. Probably pretty much like you, Luke. You're, you know, it's like, we're enjoying. Full on. Yeah. Thank you.
You're going to do it. Fucking do it.
Fucking do it. Yeah. Full on.
Yeah. It's funny. Things we were talking about, it's funny as we record this for those listening, you know, Harry and I have worked together in 2 ceremonies using MDA and psilocybin, and MDA being the heart opener, and we'll get into that process, but beautiful transformative experiences, but very deep, like real deep medicine experiences.
Yes.
And last night I went and sat with a friend of mine in a little one-on-one ceremony, and we did white lily and kanna and sassafras, 3 really great plant-based heart openers. And then it was the opportunity to take some psilocybin, and I just took a little because I kind of was like, well, I don't know. Let me just see how these 3 heart openers play out. And about halfway through that, I was like, God, I should have taken more. God damn it, you know, because it's like the experiences I had with you with that kind of stack of a combo were, I mean, I think, different than ayahuasca, but as profound and deep in the realizations and lessons and teachings that I was able to gain.
Yes.
And going out into that quantum field and accessing information and memories and things that needed to be come up and healed, and spiritual amends that needed to be made to people in my life, and unborn babies that I aborted and crazy shit. I mean, just like, wow, this is deep stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought that I would get some sleep last night and come into this interview fresh, and I maybe slept 2 hours. So I'm kind of still in the medicine. So it's actually fun being with you because I don't know, 2 at least of the extensive periods of time we've spent together have been so deep in these really profound experiences. So I'm kind of having a flashback at the moment. So I'll try to keep on track here. When you were studying with these shaman down there in Peru, were you guys using ayahuasca or San Pedro or anything, or were they just healers?
No, they were just healers. We weren't using anything except just knowledge and learning and experiencing. That's all. Yeah, it wasn't that kind of journey. But amazing things, you know, like each one of them, it's almost like, I don't want to call it magician, but it's like, you know, they would show and reveal amazing things, you know, and it was so revealing, so and you know, so touching and so beautiful that I was just like, I was in it to win it. I was just like, I'm fascinated, you know. And then I wanted to be a shaman, and You go through the fire, you learn how to exist in the flame.
Yeah, it's interesting that you had those experiences with them that had that much of an impact without the medicine, because now in the work that you do, when you're somewhere that you can legally do it, you work with, medicines. And if you're not, and other times are just based on a client's preference, I guess, you also do shamanic healing journeys with no medicine. Do you think
Correct.
that was the seed that was planted? Like, the medicine route is one option, but there's a lot that can be done just, eliciting the supernatural powers that we all have latent.
Yeah, there's so much that can be done utilizing supernatural powers. That it's everything we're ever going to be, we already are. So how do we unfold that? How do we uncover that? How do we let it evolve? And how do we hold the space for ourselves to really allow that to happen? The only reason that one does the medicine is to be able to hold a state of beingness. And that's what the medicine gives you, a different perspective on life. You're able to have epiphanies, revelations about yourself. And, for you, it's like, you're very methodical, and you went through like different veins to really sort out a lot of different things for yourself. And you got a lot of things. That's what it's like. It's like you can evolve through lifetimes with medicine. And, MAPS is really working diligently to, with the FDA and to approve. So, because they've showed the studies that it brings people through PTSD, through deep depression, through trauma, shock, devastation. And it's so valuable. On the nightly news, I saw a woman that they had administered psilocybin to, and she had stage 4 cancer. And she said that she really had a lot of fear. Our number one fear in life is dying. We're afraid to die. And so she really felt her fear on the journey, and she felt where she held it in her body. And she said she was able to release it, and she felt more free. Now, they've done documentaries on it, and it shows sometimes it can extend one's life. But even if it doesn't, it still, a person has more quality of life while they're here. So beneficial,
Yeah, it certainly has been for me. I mean, with every experience that I've had with you or others, it's like afterward, I think, oh my God, what if that hadn't happened?
Yeah.
The shit that I'm able to just plow through and just demolish all falsehood or unhealed elements of myself. And just to be able to see with such clarity and depth into my own experience and what's blocking me from my full expression.
Yeah.
And after every one, I'm just like, I don't want to be a promoter of these kind of things, because I think it has to be the right place, the right guide. You have to be in the right place, and you're right. There's so many variables. And just for me, it's happened to be this way for the past 2 years. But every time I have one of those experiences, it's like I want to run on a rooftop and just be like, everyone do mushrooms. What's wrong with you? Because it's just like incredibly deep work.
Oh, it's,
Yeah. And I had no idea. And it's funny about mushrooms, actually, and I want to get into kind of how you landed on that as your weapon of choice, so to speak. But I was writing this piece for Mind Body Green about how psychedelics and plant medicines have supported my sobriety, which is totally counterintuitive to almost all models of addiction recovery.
Right.
And that's just why it took me 22 years to venture into this world. But I was writing this piece, and I realized as I was writing it that, and this took me 22 years to discover, that my sobriety was largely due to a mushroom journey that I went on when I was still on drugs and drinking. I mean, like drugs, heroin, crack, like the baddies, the ones that have no spiritual benefit, except maybe to get you to surrender your life to God eventually if you live.
If you make it through.
Yeah, and it did. So they served their purpose. But I was just trying to get drunk, and I used to sell mushrooms, I sold weed and mushrooms in my apartment behind the Chinese Theater over here on North Orange Drive.
Oh boy.
And so I'd have these big 5-gallon buckets of mushrooms that I'd buy from this guy in Oregon. And so I always had a lot of them. And one night, me and my buddy were bored and we were getting drunk. So let's just take a bunch of mushrooms, no consciousness about it at all. I just wanted to escape from being me because it was so painful being in my skin,
Right.
And then I had a meltdown, like a little nervous breakdown in that mushroom journey. I thought I was going to be laughing and being goofy and getting sore cheeks from smiling so much. But I started crying and just like basically whining to my poor friend who just wanted to party that like, I'm a drug addict, dude, I got to get sober. I can't do this. I'm throwing my life away.
Right.
And, and then went on and kind of hit a bottom over the next few months and eventually did get to the point where I, got checked into rehab and did my thing and had a spiritual awakening there that has persisted with a lot of work. But I didn't realize that mushroom experience was the catalyst, even while I was still on drugs.
Yes.
So that actually helped me to reframe the use of plant medicines and these sacred medicines in the context of being sober, because I don't know if I would have gotten sober had I not had that clarity and that breakthrough on that journey that night. As unintentional as it was just the stark reality of my demise became so clear to me.
Right.
Within a couple months after that, I did the unthinkable and I go to rehab. I don't know if anyone's ever been to rehab, but they don't have a bar in there. There's no dealers in there. You are fucking sober and it's painful, but it happened. And so I really, thought about that. I was like, wow, that's really, really interesting that I went all those years without making the connection that was a huge turning point that night. So anyway, enough about me.
They offer that though, just to expand on that. They offer that, sometimes the studies show that it doesn't take people on a journey of being an addict to go further. It shows quite the opposite. That it gives you, like you said, in your experience, clarity that you don't want to do that anymore. You want to get clear about your life. You want to, you see, they're completely meant to evolve and unfold in consciousness. I don't recommend doing them without a guide, because I think it's great. But I've worked in sober living and treatment, and most people who are addicts, Luke, and I'm sure you can attest to this, you're a sensitive guy. You're very sensitive. Now, our sensitivity is our gift, as long as we can use it for us. But alcohol and drugs usually allow us to numb ourselves, because being a sensitive person, and I would say you're an HSP, a highly sensitive person, and that's your gift. Anytime we're sensitive, it's a gift, but it can feel like a curse or a burden, unless we use it for us, because you can see things in such a small, minute detail of life, but you don't want to use it against yourself. If we can have no internal negative self-talk and be sensitive, that's a gift. No internal negative self-talk. And medicines really allow that to happen, because it gives us a different perspective and allowed you to get clarity. Now, once we have clarity equals fun. And most of us want to have fun. If life isn't fun, it isn't life. And you're no longer interested in being fucked up anymore, because the medicine doesn't fuck you up. It doesn't take you to a place. It makes you aware, makes you alert, and makes you feel good. And there's only two ways to feel.
Yeah, it's like I think the first time I did ayahuasca, I think that thought crossed my mind. Man, is this just an escape? Not like, oh shit, I'm going to go home and drink or something. I mean, I felt solid about my sobriety, but I just thought, am I running away from something on this medicine? And it was just a micro thought for a second. And I thought, no, this isn't an escape. This is an inscape. You're going to go as deep into yourself as possible, and it's like, it's the last thing you'd want to do, the intentional use of medicines, if you're seeking to escape, because the exact opposite will happen. You will be faced with those things that you're running from.
Right.
And I think that's the nuance where
that's such a good point.
In the new realm of recovery work, especially, what I've found is that I've been able to continually heal those parts of myself that caused me to feel so uncomfortable that I had to numb myself with all of those dumbing down agents, those other types of drugs, right? So it's like, the whole point of recovery programs and everything is to get down to the root cause, and the drinking and the drugging and whoring around and all the things that we do. It appears to be the problem because that's the behavior that creates the most noise and drama.
Right.
So like when I got sober, I just thought, oh my God, I got to quit these drugs. I can't pay my rent. I'm losing friends. I'm 135 pounds and yellow. Now I'm 185 by contrast. So, I was in bad shape. And so I thought, well, I just got to get the drugs out of the way and I'll be an awesome person. Right. I got the drugs out of the way and I felt extremely uncomfortable for the first few years because there were still those things in my subconscious that I couldn't reach.
Well, you felt vulnerable, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just naked to the world.
Yeah.
And the world was made of sandpaper.
Yeah.
Sandpaper walls everywhere and they're closing in. Yeah. Being sober without changing and really deeply healing is extremely uncomfortable. And that's why the success rate of, most, even the best programs out there aren't that great. Because if someone isn't committed and doesn't have the help to achieve that inner awakening, then you're still, it's like they say in AA, they say, what do you get when you sober up a horse thief? You got a sober horse thief.
Yeah.
Getting sober doesn't make you not a horse thief. You're a horse thief because your character is fucking fucked up.
Yeah.
Because of the way you've been living. You've degraded your own moral character and disconnect yourself from God and your higher self and true self. So unless that stuff's dealt with in one way or another, whether it's medicines or not, I don't think anyone could stay sober for any considerable period of time. And if they are, probably not happily, not in a contented way. They're just like, God, I know I can't drink because it'll kill me, but life still sucks. And I lived like that for a long time. So I have so much reverence for the experience that I've had with medicine, and especially the work I did with you, as I said, extremely, extremely profound. I mean, just totally unexpected. I remember you must have got some from your shaman down in Peru, because I remember the first time I think I looked over at you and I was just so deep in the medicine and you just knew exact songs to play and you were so tapped into my experience and cookies there with me. And I don't know if you remember, I looked up at you and I said, man, Harry, you're a fucking wizard. From that moment, that's how I always see you now. I was like, ooh, there's this precocious sort of, playful, loving, benevolent wizard in there. So I can see how you discovered that in yourself early on, but what led you to specifically work with psilocybin? And then even in the combo of the heart opening medicines, the MDA or MDMA and that whole mix.
I've just never experienced anything that allows a person to evolve and unfold in consciousness, to really reveal and live a healthy life and really, move through things, because we feel trauma, we feel wounds, and most people live out of their wound. As a human being, most of the time we magnetize to the negative, we magnetize to the wound rather than magnetize to the positive. And if we can magnetize to the negative, isn't it possible that we magnetize to the positive? What it does is it reveals. And it reveals so much about oneself that, because we're in avoidance usually. We're fearful or we're resistant to feel what we're feeling because we're so sensitive, or to deal with something or face our shadow or turn and face our shadow. And once we turn and face it, it's like a puff of smoke, usually. It's not that big of a deal, but it's being able and willing to do that. The medicine really offers that. It offers such a different perspective. We don't see life how it is. We see life how we are.
Right.
And the medicine really offers you a different perspective. And it allows people, I could give so many different, scenarios, but it allows for evolvement and unfoldment in this lifetime. And that's all we're here for, is to really live in our greatest self and how we move through that. And if, MAPS is doing really a lot of work, and I hope that it continues and, to allow people, because therapists recommend it, therapists and doctors recommend it. Some do, that it really helps. They've done documentaries on PTSD and how psilocybin can really move people through. I went to an event, and this woman, she had been in Iraq and Iran, and she said her PTSD was so bad, Luke, that she wasn't functional. She couldn't function. And she did it 3 times, guided, and she was fine. How valuable is that for all of our veterans, or for anybody who has trauma, and pretty much being a human being and growing up, we all have some sort of shock trauma.
I don't know anyone that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes trauma is what doesn't happen.
Right.
You didn't get affection, or you were ignored because you're the middle child. Trauma isn't always getting smacked in the face. Sometimes it's like you're ignored and that's your trauma. It's like the lack of something, not the addition of something that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So I agree. And especially in anyone I've known with mental health issues and addiction issues, I mean, it's like it always goes back to the trauma.
Yeah.
And just the, all of the repercussions of the original trauma. And as we have to hold it within ourselves and don't know how to express it and process it, it gets repressed. And then we build this suppression, repression mechanism where anything uncomfortable that comes at us, we're just like, nope, don't deal with that. Don't deal with that.
Yeah.
Until we're like a powder keg
That's
of
avoidance.
Dysfunction.
Yeah. Which really gets us into trouble. Mm-hmm. That's why self-help doesn't work, Luke, because we're the problem. I grew up, I was traumatized because I was the most affectionate, got the least attention. I was like, well, if I can be affectionate, why can't everybody else?
Right.
Somebody, can be affectionate. It's okay.
Right.
I was traumatized by it.
Right.
I had to heal that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you, we're in 2020 now. When did you first have a psilocybin experience yourself that was transformative? And then when did you start training and learning how to facilitate and take other people on journeys?
I studied with a guy and really, did the medicine in a guided way. And it was so, I realized what was occupying the real estate in my head. Like I realized how the things that were taking me out, because we have a divine mind, we have an insane mind. And my insane mind was taking me way out. And I noticed what was taking me away. And it was so powerful for me to realize, well, that's just keeping me from my greatest self. All these things that I'm preoccupied with, that I'm distracted with, because we're either connected or we're distracted. And it really showed me so many things that were distracting me. And it was like I was able to really use my internal muscularity to go, okay, I'm tracking my internal environment. I'm going to be vigilant about tracking my internal environment. I'm going to stay here. And I noticed all the things that were taking me away. And it allowed me to align, to be really single-mindedly focused and fine-tuned. So I got to calibrate myself. And it was so powerful to me. I was so taken with it that could be the process through the experience, that I was like, wow, and you do feel like you want to shout it on the rooftops. Most everybody that I know of that, has experienced some sort of, it's like, because it's liberating. I mean, to be free inside of love, there's freedom. To be inside of love and to be free to be ourselves and free to be unique and free to just feel like you have freedom. We forget how much freedom we have, but it's just, there aren't words to express how that feeling is. And most people want to yell it from the rooftops, but yeah,
it's
right?
also just, like it's like when you feel as though you've stumbled across such a huge key in the lock that we face in our stuckness as a race, you then you see your trauma, and then you walk down the street and you just see everyone's trauma being projected in one way or another.
Right.
And, how to undo it. So it's like, I'm just like, God, everyone needs to do this. Let's put ayahuasca in the Washington, D.C. water supply. Like, fuck this, man.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. It's a really good idea.
Really good idea.
Anyone out there, I wish these little Antifa terrorists would do something useful like that instead of tearing down a Starbucks or whatever. So how long ago was that when you had those first experiences and started looking at this? I want to get a little scope of time.
So when I had an epiphany, I changed my life 31 years ago. So I became a healer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I'm only 27 though.
Yeah. For those watching on video, he's 65 and he looks about 45. Looks like I have a couple years on him at 50. Okay, so what have you seen change in the world of psilocybin and or plant medicines in terms of popularity, public acceptance, the potential legality? Now it's starting, psilocybin's legal in Oakland and Santa Cruz and Mexico.
Colorado.
And in Colorado. Right. So, there's places where people can go have these experiences without having to do some weird underground illegal drug, quote unquote, experience. What was it like in the beginning versus what it's like now? Because other than going to Grateful Dead shows and taking acid and mushrooms, I never had any conception that they could be used for anything other than that.
Right.
And this is in the early 90s. And I'm sure there were kind of little micro plant medicine communities and healers and shaman around in this country, but I certainly wasn't meeting them. It's only been really past 4 or 5 years. I'm seeing God, almost everyone I know has had an experience or continues to have experiences, is part of a prayer group or a medicine group. And
right.
It's just it's becoming ubiquitous, which I think is so healthy for us as a species. I really just think it might be our only hope, honestly. I really believe that.
I agree.
So what was it like in the beginning? I mean, how did you guys communicate when a ceremony were you more paranoid about it being illegal? Because now it's kind of like mushrooms aren't really a big deal to a lot of people.
No, there wasn't any fear that I experienced. There was, and it was a large group. It was so beautiful. I mean, the music was so amazing and the shaman was amazing. It was just, everybody was so happy. And it's like taking a happy pill, or, it's like tuning in to happiness or tuning into joy, your own joy. Joy is innate within us and we're never separate from it. It's always there. It felt so good. It just felt like a coming together. And when your heart opens like that, you realize, wow, love is real. Anything else we're experiencing outside of love, we're hallucinating. Love is real. Like this is amazing. This is beautiful. Let's share this with the world. What if the world leaders could do, plant medicine so that, we're acting like high school students in our debates and politically at the moment. It's shocking that we have supremacy in the world and this is how people are behaving, So to do something like this is so beneficial. And the first time I did it was just like, wow, amazing. Well, I did acid in the 70s, 80s, just a brief period of doing it. But it just opens your mind so much. That's why, say Jimi Hendrix. He would play for like 5 or 6 hours and he would put tabs of acid underneath his bandana. And as he began to sweat, he would sweat and the acid would roll down and he would just lick it and keep going and keep playing, anything that opens our mind and opens our heart is going to be beneficial for us.
It's really interesting on that note. It's in medicine journeys, I often feel like that's as sober as you can be.
Yes.
Follow me here, right?
Yeah,
it's like
completely.
You become less encumbered by your personality.
Absolutely.
The
by
ego,
anything.
Analytical mind, and you become what you are at the core, which is the most sober. I mean, if I think of myself on like no drink or drug one day, okay, I'm sober today, and I'm thinking neurotically and obsessively and reacting from patterns developed by trauma and PTSD and all the shit, I'm actually insane.
Yeah.
Even though technically my blood work would show I'm sober.
Right.
Go take medicine and all that shit gets healed and pushed aside, and I'm merging with God and the God within me. Like, that's as sober as you can get.
Yeah.
But I think the distinction, I'd like to get some feedback from you on ways to do this, but because you're taking medicine and the veil's being lifted and you're having a higher degree of truth revealed, essentially like the clouds are just being moved away so the sun can shine. But then the next day, you're not on the medicine. You got to go to work. You're still getting a divorce. You're doing whatever you're doing. And so those clouds come back and seem to obscure the light of God or realization from us again. And it seems what has helped me not just have a peak experience and be like, wow, that was cool. I had some realizations. I don't know what they are, what to do with them, but I've been pretty mindful about, you know, communicating the things I learned with, you know, Lallis and my fiance or friends, and making sure I verbalize it or write it down.
Yeah.
And then really do my best to integrate that. Or if I see a pattern reemerging in my waking non-medicine life, I can go, oh, ding, ding. Remember, Luke?
Yeah.
This is what you hit up against. Don't run from it now.
Right.
Because you already faced it.
Right.
You have the courage to face it.
Yeah.
And it's a boogeyman, like you said. It's it just disappears the moment you see it, these falsehoods and things.
Yeah.
What are ways that you yourself, concrete ways that you've learned to integrate the realizations and lessons, and how do you work with integration on people that you hold ceremony for?
Well, integration is highly important. Today's revelation can be tomorrow's ego trip, you know, and it's very important. You know, integration is so important. The day after, you may feel a little bit like, oh, I'm exhausted. And you need to rest. You just need to rest and just let things integrate. You know, I think we don't integrate and process enough in our lives, you know, to reflect and go. And then it's a practice of being present. You know, the first step is being present, really being vigilant about tracking our internal environment. And like you said, oh, okay, I ran up against a hard edge. Okay, I remember that. And, you know what to do. Because life is all choice. We're choosing every moment. So the days afterwards are, for integration, highly important. And it's having a spiritual practice of really practicing single-minded focus. Meditation is practicing single-minded focus to connect. And, you know, it's called singularity. If we can do everything that we do with absolute, total, and complete focus, because the people in the world, if you're a ball player, it doesn't matter, football, basketball, baseball, golf, tennis, you know, you got to keep your eye on the ball. It's all about focus. So the integration is highly important. You may have, listen, it doesn't matter if we know everything, Luke. We can know everything, you know? It's, can we do it? Can we do it? You know, it's like, okay, our inner being, even when we check in, our inner being knows everything. The second step is, can we do it? Will we make good choices for ourselves? Do we have an unconscious commitment to sabotage ourselves because it keeps us from our greatest self? We can have the revelation, we can have the epiphany, but integration is very important the days afterward and the rest, you know? Very, 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 very important.
Because otherwise it becomes just sort of a, it gets minimized to an intellectual aha moment, or as you said, something the ego can seize on and be like, check out the revelation I had about myself. I'm so insightful.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the ego will grab anything, any crumbs it can get and build a structure out of it.
Yeah.
But I think the realizations, they lack the context and potential for change unless you really take them and embody them and put them to work. And I think because I had been doing that without medicines for so long, just because I didn't want to suffer anymore, not because I'm a great guy or anything, but eventually the non-suffering helped me be a better guy. But with the medicines, it was just, I mean, those every little nugget, those morsels of truth and realization and insight into the psyche and spirit and all those things. It's like, I can't wait to go back into my life and see what my life looks like with those lessons applied, rather than just being an intellectual construct or a spiritual story you can brag about because you're so deep or some shit, you know?
I call it debugging and upgrading the human operating system because we're like computers. So if we have stories that we're telling us ourselves that don't serve us, we're playing on a loop. If we delete that, shift our focus, then our human operating system can operate more efficiently. You know, if we have apps running that are like belief systems that don't serve us, you know, the number one textbook thing for us as human beings is who we are is not enough. If we have that app playing, who I am is not enough. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't fit in. You know, all those, it's like an app. All these apps, if you know, unload that app and you file it away, then your human operating system can operate more efficiently. You know, our inner being would not tell us anything negative about ourselves. So when we can really be vigilant and track and be present, and we notice we're living our greatest self, and it's important. It doesn't matter if we know it, if we can't develop that internal attitudinal muscularity to really embody it and be it. You know, because one of the most powerful questions that we can ask ourselves is, how am I being? How am I being in this moment? How am I being? You know, how am I being when my lover stands in front of me? How am I being when my boss stands in front of me? When my children stand in front of me? You know, to be authentic, to be vulnerable. Like for you earlier was such an important point. You know, to be vulnerable. What are we doing if we're not being vulnerable? We must be vulnerable, because what are we doing? We're wearing a mask or putting up a shield. You know, Rumi, the great poet, said, you know, we're not here to seek love. We're not here to seek love. We're here to find all the barriers to love and let them down. We're here to be love, you know? And so we must be able to develop that internal attitudinal muscularity to really be it. We can have a revelation, and then we must embody it. We must be it. We're human beings. We get to be it.
Speaking of body, for whatever reason, we didn't do a lot of body work during the sessions I did with you. But I know that that's the somatic experience and body work, whether you're working with medicines or the people that you choose to, or in locations where you're not using medicines. You'll work with people and do a lot of the healing arts. And it has to do with that oscillator thing you have. I want to talk about that.
Okay.
You have done that on me. It's freaking addictive as hell. But how do these cobwebs and subconscious wounds and stuck patterns and things, how do they live in our body? And what are the ways you use energetically or even physically to help move those things out of our tissues and, you know, out of that, out of the matter that we start to think we are, as that matter becomes so dense as we get burdened by these experiences and beliefs and all the falsehood. And then your spirit starts to open up, but you still have this dense body that's still wanting to hold on because the nervous system is used to being in a certain response to protect itself. And just because your mind and spirit has become liberated, that doesn't mean the body's necessarily going to be along for the ride.
Correct.
Is that kind of roughly it?
Yeah.
So when did you start putting that piece into practice, and what are some of the ways you've seen it unlock someone's full potential?
Oh, in so many different ways. I think that's the first way I started, because I went to massage school, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to massage school, and then when I graduated, I went and got a job with a chiropractor at Beverly and Robertson here in LA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I worked with a woman named Susan Jeffers, who wrote a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So,
I've heard of that book. Yeah.
Yeah. It's simple. It's great. It's so good. But we record things from our life on a cellular level that get encapsulated in our bodies. But it's mind-body awareness, because if it's in our body, it's in our mind. If it's in our mind, it's in our body. So, I mean, they've come out with all these articles lately on cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy is great, but it only takes us so far. We must get in the body. Yeah. So this amazing man made me, Norman, he made me it's called a North Field Magnetic Oscillator. So it's a vibration and it has magnets in it. So it's energy medicine, which we forget about energy medicine, right? And so I oscillate the body, because what it does is, the best way to explain it is, it penetrates all the way to your electrons. So it goes in, it breaks up and shatters any heavy, dense energy, and it balances the cells to 0 point. So we're cleaning on a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And what I call it cellular erasing. So I'm erasing shock, trauma, devastation on a cellular level out of the body because we have our heritage, our lineage that we passed down. Maybe our grandfather was abusive and then our father was abusive. And then we become abusive unless we become a transitional character to stop the buck here, right? So the body's so important to really find and get in there. We live in a heavy, dense universe. We live in a fear-based universe. Just watch the news. Yeah. So we really get to notice where we're addicted, Luke, to heavy, dense energy. The insane mind, the ego tells us, well, if I can suffer, it gives me some sort of validity as a human being because it's like wrapping yourself in a warm blanket because it's familiar. And if you can suffer, that's familiar, right? It's a different, and it's okay to not be okay, but it's certainly okay to be okay to go, okay, I can choose something different. I can choose peace in this moment. I can choose peace right here, right now. I don't have to go to all that. But sometimes we have an unconscious commitment to suffer. We're suffering addicts sometimes.
Yeah.
Just to suffer.
Yeah.
And then we're sensation addicts. Or, well, our addict is an addict. Our issues have issues. And then
my addictions have sub-addictions. It's like the addictive iPhone, it's like sometimes I think, I just got to be on Instagram less. And I realize what about the 10 other apps you're addicted to also? It's like, no, the whole phone just has to go.
Yeah.
A friend of mine texted me today, oddly enough, we were on a Telegram conversation, a former guest on the show who I guess will remain anonymous, but brilliant woman. And she sent me a voice message. She said, you know what, Luke? She heard this interview I did with Janice Barcelo about birth trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Really super triggering, hardcore reality check of an episode. And at the end of it, we were talking about cell phones for some reason. And she's like, I don't have a smartphone. Are you kidding me? I don't use that stuff. Rot your mind or whatever she said. But this woman texted me. She's like, after that interview, I really think I'm just going to get an old school flip phone. I'm done. I'm just opting out of this.
Yeah.
Because of all the wormholes of obsession, I'm assuming. For me, that's what it is. Yeah. It's like, if I could just use it as a utility and have the discipline to only use it for that, but it becomes this dopamine pinging addiction, and so I guess that's the fun thing about life is hopefully as you progress, your addictive tendencies tend to gravitate towards things that are less destructive,
Right.
There's times in my life I was addicted to stuff that could kill you in one try, and did it every day. At least with the phone, it just, it's a slow death of numbing you out of consciousness. These experiences that we have, as you said, they really do get stuck in our body. And that was really indicative of working with you. As you'll recall, both times I've sat with you, 3/4 way through the experience, my body just starts involuntarily shaking, especially my hips. And it's just this undulating thing. And I could tense my body and stop it. So it's not so involuntary that I couldn't make it stop, but I don't want to make it stop because it's what the body wants to do. And I found those two experiences to be almost uniform and also something that I've never experienced before. And I've done Kundalini yoga for 8 years. I mean, I've had a lot of far out, just totally natural, 100% sober experiences, just using breath and moving the energy in my body and the mantra and all of that. But that shit was on another level. And I don't know if I've ever really asked you about it. I just kind of, went through it and then parted ways and whatever. But what did you sense was going on in me where the body wanted to do that? And is that common when you do work with people, that their body has this spontaneous, seemingly autonomous experience?
Well, you had it both times. And it's my theory that the medicine works with your plasma. It works with allowing you to shed heavy, dense vibration. It allows you to raise your vibration. So it's like you're fitting into new skin. So sometimes you just have to shake and shake into it. It's like just fit into your new skin. Yeah. Because from the place that we live from internally, you're living from a more expanded place, you know? And that's what we want to do, is live. And so the shaking is just, you're just like, okay, that space internally is just expanding so that you can live from a more expanded place. That's my theory, Luke. I mean,
is this that type of response something that is common in your experience?
No, it's not. It doesn't. I mean, it hasn't happened to a lot of people. You're unique. For sure, you're unique.
Thank God.
We know that.
Yeah, that was, both times were really incredible. And it's a funny feeling because it's a little bit unsettling.
Right.
As I sit here and kind of mimic it to get the memory, it's a little unsettling, but at the same time, it just feels like it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And to stop it would be like, this isn't right. Like this, it needs to, whatever's happening here needs to happen. I'm just going to let it.
Well, you're just hooking into a rhythm, right? You're just hooking into an internal flow, you know, and you can just open up to it.
Yeah. Why and when did the heart opener of the sassafras or MDA or some people use MDMA and these kind of things in conjunction with mushrooms as like a preliminary first dose of medicine? You have this sort of heart opening emotional availability, I guess one could say, and then into more of the deeply psychedelic and quantum travel of the mushrooms. When did you discover that was a useful combination? And is that something that's widespread? Are many people doing that? It's
widespread. I think my teacher, that was the combination, because MDA is sassafras. It's a resin from the tree, you know, and it's infused, but it's a heart opener. It opens the heart. MDMA was developed by psychiatrists to bring people out of deep depressions. So, and it works. It's a heart opener, and it gives a platform and foundation for the psilocybin to stand on. And then you're really having a transcendent experience, which is beautiful. And then the mushrooms have a protein that blend with your neurons in your brain. So you're able to create new pathways, and you're able to create new channels and pathways through your being, because most of us are top heavy. We live from the chin up, lost in thought. Our mind is a beautiful thing. It's an electrical current. But if we stay solely there, we feel separateness. You know, it's dropping into our heart and feeling love. Love is maximal the moment that we radiate love, and we feel oneness. You know, we went through 2012 in the Mayan calendar that people thought, oh, we're going to have an experience here. You know, there's something, it's the end of the world. Yes, it's the end of the world as we know it, because we were having a planetary alignment that hadn't happened in the last 26,000 years. So we were having a moment that was creating a portal for us as humanity to step through. Now, the portal there was only room for one person. It was a doorway, stargate, if you will, to step through. So we either have to line up to go through it and march through it, or remember that we're all one and take a step for humanity to go through it. Yeah. So
what do you see for the future of, you were mentioning maps a couple of times, but the future of more widespread acceptance and availability of these type of experiences, specifically with mushrooms or something like MDA? It seems like, you know, you have a few cities and states around that are starting to decriminalize, but there seems to be a lot of clinicians, you know, I don't think they have it on their website, but not healers or shaman, but like psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, et cetera, that are still kind of using MDMA on the download. A lot of people are using ketamine now, which is totally legal medically, and also psilocybin. So it seems that, I don't know if there's a resurgence or if all the underground people just kind of went, it's actually pretty safe to be out doing this work. But I mean, it seems in the medical and psychiatric community, the mental health industry, I guess you could say, is really starting to embrace this, or at least becoming more public about it. Do you foresee this just becoming the norm?
Well, there certainly is a movement towards it. It's appearing on the ballots to be voted on, and MAPS is doing amazing work. Tim Ferriss raised $10 million to assist. And the FDA has approved for MAPS to have clinical trials of people with PTSD and come and, and it's working. It's really working. Yes. I mean, my hope, my wish is that it's widespread, that these kinds of really holistic treatments are available for people who really are stuck, who are really wounded. And, I did as a suggestion, I watched Hoarders one day as a suggestion. And if you watch Hoarders, those people are wounded emotionally, and it really shows in our culture, in our society, how many people are wounded, I mean, I work with people with medicine and I don't need any medicine to really work, but I had a guy come and he's Eastern Indian and, he had an arranged marriage and there's so many things, he didn't feel accepted. He was abused by his father. He's never been able to work through that, These things must be addressed so that we can live healthy. And, because wounded people wound people, and the buck's got to stop here. It's got to stop, I think if Biden and Trump could have a medicine journey, they wouldn't speak to each other the way they speak to each other. It wouldn't be like a high school. I mean, it's like, it feels like it's below high school, I mean, to tell on a presidential level to say, shut up, man. I mean, it's like, let's gain some.
Come on, man. Funny stuff, man. It's the theater of our world right now.
We're seeing how it's playing out on the world stage.
Coming to a pinnacle, the unconsciousness is just coming so much to the surface.
We're seeing great contrast. We're seeing great contrast in the world where we're either moving into deep fear and doubt. Look at the people that are still quarantining and won't go out. And, I mean, if we vibe high, we can repel bacteria and viruses. If we vibe high, but because it creates a field around us. We're all, energy's everything. Everything's energy. I mean, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, pay attention to vibration, to frequency, to energy. We learned about Florence Nightingale, who was the nurse in school, in high school. Do you remember Florence Nightingale?
I remember the name, but I don't got the story.
So she took care of all the soldiers that had typhoid fever because everybody was afraid to take care of them because they thought they'd get typhoid fever and die, right? She whistled a happy tune and took care of all the soldiers and she was fine. It's amazing what we repel when we vibe high. There are masters around the earth that can drink rat poison and they're fine. I don't recommend we drink rat poison today.
That's like the story, of Ram Dass's guru, Neem Karoli Baba. He was curious about this, I forget what he called it, God juice or something, about their liquid LSD. They're always dosing LSD. And so he talked him into eventually trying it. He took some and nothing happened.
Right.
And they thought, we didn't give him enough or it was a bad batch or something. So they went again and gave him a big hero's dose. And again, no state change at all. Because he's already there.
Yeah, he's already there.
So it's interesting to think about the fact that these medicines help us access something and it seems otherworldly, but it really is just how we innately are.
Yeah.
It's just that it's obscured in order for us to come into the world. I mean, you can't be a regular person and be on medicine every day and operate in the world. You can't function in 3D, I don't think, effectively if you're in that heavy experience, but we have these opportunities to lift the veil, get purview into other, levels of truth and insight, and then come back in the 3D body and go enact that vision or take those steps that we've been shown. But I think it is really interesting how certain beings do become immune to illnesses and even a big dose of LSD.
Yeah.
Just through the power of consciousness.
We use such a small portion of what we're capable of, And the only reason to do the medicine is to achieve a state of beingness, and then you don't need the medicine because it is accessing a state of beingness and a beautiful one just to reveal things to us so that we're able to live happy, joyous, and free. We came here to live in joy, to enjoy our lives. We didn't come here to suffer, We came here to enjoy our lives. So how do we do that? How do we really access that.
Yeah, I find your kind of hard line on making the choice about how you're going to perceive a situation or how you're going to react to it or not. A lot of people talk about that, but it's much more easier said and understood than done. And I've been around you enough to see, especially one situation where at your house and there was a little bit of a conflict between you and someone else. Actually, not between you. Someone was having a conflict within themselves. And I was watching that dynamic kind of going like, oh man, is Harry going to be all fucked up? You know, this got a little awkward and tense there. And I was like, are you okay here? You're like, what? Yeah, took care of it. I'm not going to be unhappy. Are you kidding me? You know, and I was like, is he kidding? I'm like, oh no, this dude's for real. He really just decided, I don't do drama. I'm love. I love, you know, I love the conflict. I love the person that was manifesting the conflict and love myself enough to not go down that road and become all neurotic about some little ultimately trivial exchange, you know? And I thought, wow, that's really cool.
Whoever has the most dominant vibration will win. You know, listen, if we're living vertically and we're living in what I call the 3 Ps, positivity, possibility, potentiality, right? We're living in we're living in the quantum field. We're living in the mind of God. Yeah. When we're living, drama does not exist in that state. When we live in our divine mind, drama does not exist. It can't. That's why it's so important to see through the illusion. That's all we came here. This is a schoolyard. Planet Earth, it's a schoolyard. It's the game of life. And it's all how we play it. So when we're clear, drama doesn't exist. It's like, okay, it's happening. All right. You know, I'm seeing through the illusion. It's not, you know, it's drama. Now, the illusion can feel as powerful in its effect as is the truth that love is real, if you let it pull you in. You see, here's how I like to give a visual, because in our divine mind, there's one compartment, Luke. You know, we're either in our flow state, in the flow of love, or we're not. Now, when we can't be in our divine mind and our insane mind at the same time. So when we're in our divine mind, there's firewalls that go up. We're just like computers. So there's firewalls, you know, that go up. So the insane mind is insidious, it's cunning, it's tireless, it has attack thoughts, it gains evidence. It's not here just to inconvenience us. It wants us to suffer. So it's a good gauge that if we're suffering, our insane mind is engaged. So there's firewalls that go up when we're in our divine mind. But we have free will. So we can venture over there if we want to. Yeah, to be insane, to be in the drama. And a lot of us are addicted to the drama, Luke. And with couples, I work with a lot of couples. And couples get addicted to being connected in the drama rather than connected into love. It's very simple, but it plays out in epic, complicated ways. You know?
Oh, I know.
It's like the War of the Roses sometimes, you know? But drama doesn't exist if you're really being in the world. Drama doesn't exist. It's like, okay, it's happening. Where do I put my focus? Does that resonate?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, like I get the concept and have made some headway there, but I think it's interesting when I observe someone in a situation in which I would picture myself probably caving to the drama and feeling, at least if nothing else, if not attacking, feeling a sense of guilt or shoulda, coulda, woulda, you know, did I fuck this up? Was it my fault? Like I would probably more go inward with the attack than I would generally be on the attack for the other. But it was instrumental, you know, to see that little situation. And just, it was a great reminder of embodiment, you know, of actually not just saying those words, but having the practice to be able to do it.
Well, if we're not walking our talk, what are we doing? You know, we must develop that internal attitudinal muscularity to stay and to walk our talk. That's otherwise.
Yeah. Otherwise, why are you in a body? What are you doing here? One thing I'm curious about, you know, we participated in a Bufo alvarius toad poison smoking DMT ceremony together as participants. And I don't want to even get into explaining mine because it's beyond explanation. Words wouldn't do it justice. But I just remember I laid down and all this crazy shit happened. And I don't know if I could have moved, but I did not want to move. I mean, I was just floored by the intensity of that situation. And then when your turn came, you were doing like the wave. You were on the ground, just head to toe, just your body was just moving in this ecstatic wave for like 15 minutes. And I remember sitting there over you, you know, holding space, praying. And I just thought, oh, what is going on inside him right now? Like, what was that experience like for you? Because I never did ask you.
It was pretty extraordinary. I felt like there was just a wave of energy inside of me. And I felt like my hands went down to the earth. And I felt like I was just becoming one with Mother Earth, and just the ecstasy that I was feeling was making love to the universe.
Oh man.
It was really blissful for me.
Yeah.
Just becoming one with everything, and that oneness, it just felt like everything was like a wave, and I was feeling like making love to the universe. It was pretty extraordinary.
Wow.
I know it's probably not an easy thing to, to put into words.
Yeah, it's not. But since I was there and I never got the chance to ask you that, but also I think it's indicative of the fact that there's been a lot of clearing done.
Yes,
through all of the work you've done in service and all the work you've done in service to yourself. So a lot of accounts that I hear about DMT experiences, they're kind of too intense for people, and people get kind of blown out, and it was just like they thought they were dead, and all of that kind of stuff. But mine was beautiful, but there was also there was some pretty deep grief and things that came up that were like a deep well I had never had access to. Past life, pain, and celebrating and mourning deaths that I'd had before, and really deep stuff. But there's no sense of resistance, because I know when I'm getting into the gold like that, it's like, oh yeah, here we go. This is the real shit. This isn't like, maybe I'll quit biting my fingernails. No, this is like karmic shifts and chains broken. But a lot of people have that resistance. I think perhaps they come into a situation like that cold with a really powerful medicine like that, and a lot of the heavy lifting hasn't been done in the 3D realm, just over the years, and it's just like, too much. So I sensed watching you, I was like, wow, he's really clear. There's no resistance to the intensity of the experience. So I just wanted to reflect that to you and just give you some appreciation for, having me bear witness to a beautiful surrender moment.
Oh, thank you, Luke.
And a really meaningful clearing. Yeah.
Well, here's what means the most to me. People talk about living in 3D and 5D and 7D and 11D and big D and little d and all Ds. We're multidimensional beings. We're multidimensional beings. We must be able to, to be fully expressed in this dimension, to be fully activated, to live in all dimensions. Yeah. And to be able to access, some people live in the ethers, and I work with lots of fairies. Fairies are amazing. They sprinkle stardust in people's lives. They're like Tinkerbell, right? But fairies get to be really grounded. We all get to be grounded. Psychics are I work with famous psychics, and they can fly all over the place. They are gifted, and they have information. They can, gather information. But then it's like, okay, how can I live my life? We came here to enjoy our lives. We came here to live fully embodied, fully expressed, and it's important and beneficial for me to be able to access all dimensions and be a multidimensional being like we are. We're multidimensional beings, and we get to live it here. That's why the plant medicine is so good and so valuable, and to help people clean and clear. That's my whole thing every morning, that I have a spiritual practice to get clean, get clear, and get connected. And then we can walk through life. Accessing all of us. But if we live from the chin up, we're top heavy, And the mind is such a beautiful thing, but we can't just use just our mind. We get to incorporate our heart, connect, and really use that. Sacral chakra is balance, yin and yang energy, balance of yin and yang. And then root chakra, it's our sexuality, sensuality, creativity, and giving ourselves a platform and a foundation in this dimension on planet Earth to really be able to function at our highest level. That's what's meaningful. That's what means the most to me, is how do we really live here and really function in this and be okay? We get to allow somebody to stand in front of us and have a strong emotion and not make it mean anything. It's okay. That's like witnessing. Witnessing is powerful in our lives. To be able to just witness doesn't mean anything, has nothing to do with us unless we take it on. But that's what happens because we're empaths usually. I know you're an empath.
I've had to work on that a lot. That codependency piece slips in there too, from different childhood experiences where I've found it difficult to maintain my emotional autonomy.
Yeah.
And so if someone that I care about or I'm close to is feeling strong emotions of any type, it's like they grab a hold of me and I'm enveloped in that experience with them without being able to witness it like I am with my own experience on a good day.
Right.
So that's a really good key point there, and that distinction of also witnessing other in their experience and allowing them to have that.
Yeah.
And not feeling obligated to make it yours.
Yeah. It's one of the most powerful things we can do. Even what we're, to be able to just stay the center of the universe is here. We're here. We're not out here. This is searching for ourselves where we're not. So when we can stay here, we can track our internal environment, then we can read our external environment, but we stay here. It's most of us that are empaths or we're clairsentient, we run our energy through another person and back to us, or through the universe and back to us. And then we're toxic. And then we're like, ugh. And then we don't understand what's going on. We must keep our energy here, track our internal environment, stay here, and then read our external. But witness, don't take it on. Look, a lot of people come to me, they're very unhappy, Luke, about the state of the affairs of the world, and rightly so. We're the Titanic headed for the iceberg if we don't turn it around. Let's be real. Yeah? But the thing is we must live in the world rather than of the world. If we're feeling bad, we have two eyes that look outward, we have two hands that look outward, most of we're living out here. But we're here. We can live in the world. Look, we must make the best of what the situation that we have at hand. We can live in the world. There's always been things in the world that are going on. There's always been chaos. There always will be. We live in a world of duality. So we get to stay here and stay really anchored. And our practice gets to be like, stay present, stay connected, stay here, rather than run our energy through someone else and back to us. Just witness. And we can witness. Now, when we vibe high, when we radiate and broadcast love, because we're the most powerful thing in the universe, when we radiate love, it's maximal. So we get to go in and then go out. Yeah. And when we stay here, we affect the world the most. We're the most effectual to be able to just radiate and broadcast, no matter what life offers or who stands in front of us, that we can just stay. It's the place that we get to live and be okay, because then we're affecting things.
Yes, sir, I do.
You do it, Luke.
Beautiful. Well, man, I think our Bel Campo meal is here.
Okay.
I could go on and on, as listeners know, over my 4-hour shows. But I think that's actually a really sweet spot to end on, is that embodiment and just recognizing each of our own power. And it sounds cliche, but it really is the way it works. And that level of consciousness of love is inherently so much more powerful than that of grief and shame and anguish and all those things that we experience on the lower levels. It just really does always trump the lower levels of consciousness when we can radiate that within ourselves. And that's when you walk into a room and there was supposed to be drama, and you walk in and you're on a good day and you're embodying that, and all of a sudden everything gets diffused.
That's right.
And you're just like, whoa, how did that happen?
Do you remember Mr. Magoo? Just one quick story. Do you remember Mr. Magoo?
Yeah.
So he was blind, Mr. Magoo, if those of you who don't remember Mr. Magoo, but Mr. Magoo was blind.
I'm probably just old enough to remember Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, you're probably just old enough. And so Mr. Magoo was this wonderful cartoon character, and he was blind, and he went through life like this, feeling like this. And the bad guys showed up in the black cars and the black suits, and they were coming after him. And he couldn't see, so he had such a vibration that he just put his arms around them and incorporated them in his vibration. And soon enough, they forgot all about what they were doing to come and get him. And he led them on his journey. That's why I say whoever has the most dominant vibration will win.
Yeah.
And so often we let people with the dark, the lowest common denominator in the room dominate it because we magnetize to negativity rather than magnetize to the positive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great, when we really can learn it, it's so beautiful to utilize it in life.
Yeah. It's a superpower, dude.
It's one of the, confidence is one of the secrets to life. And I always say, the secret to life? Feel good. Feel good. Only two ways to feel: good and gooder. So feel good, and the universe knows what to do. The universe knows what to do. Mm-hmm. If you feel bad, you're repelling. It's just repelling. So get ourselves in a place of feeling good.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you. You've really touched my life, and I'm so happy to call you a friend and
thank you,
trusted advisor. And really glad we made the opportunity to do this. And I can't wait to continue the journey with you.
Yes.
It's inspiring and always super fun.
Super fun.
And, if we're not having fun, why are we doing it?
If life isn't fun, it isn't life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we have fun.
Yeah, for sure. Before we close out, I got one last question for you. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life and your work?
Ooh, the Course in Miracles, it has been really influential in my life. I started it in the 80s and I practiced it, the whole time. It's been so beneficial to me. Amazing. I've studied with yogis, and Eastern philosophy. But there's been so many teachings that are so beneficial. I studied shamanism, Sufism, Buddhism. I studied so many different things. The Kabbalah. There's such amazing teachings. The Course in Miracles has really been dominant in my life because if you can live. And the Course in Miracles talks about everything and talks about nothing. It's amazing. So if you can really embody it, it's a beautiful thing. I think it's touched my life the most.
That's funny. I didn't know that about you. I'm a peripheral fan and sometimes reader, and various times have made it to like day 7 of doing the 365-day thing. But the one thing I always remember from A Course in Miracles is if you find yourself in conflict or strife, ask yourself the question, would you rather be right or happy?
Yeah.
Right? And that has saved so much drama in interpersonal relationships. So once you lose the addiction to being right and that temporary juice of satisfaction that you get off it, you're willing to surrender that, then you can just let everyone else be right and you be happy.
Yeah, the Course in Miracles says it's our role to tell another person that they're right, even if they're wrong. Because once you tell a person that they're right, it just takes everything, all the heat out of the situation, And it says the only thing that's ever missing in any situation is what we're not giving. And that's a big one in life. I think a teacher who really affected me was David Hawkins, and I saw him live.
Oh my God. Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
I didn't know you saw Hawkins.
Yeah.
Me too. I have a show coming out, I think in 2 weeks, all about the map of consciousness and his teachings. Yeah.
When I saw him, and when he said, the only place, he told a whole elaborate story, and he said, the only place we're ever going to have a problem is inside of you. Because if you don't have a problem, guess what? There's no problem. If we can choose, I don't have a problem. Usually, the first act of war, right? Defense. So usually somebody has a problem in front of us and then we make it real. And then we become defensive and then we burn some shit down, if we just stay, it's beautiful. Another person is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think he's great. I've been to his master class.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool, huh?
Amazing. So cool. You've had him on your
pretty medicine journey, like
those
meditations, man. Like,
oh,
even I think a couple of the nights when I went to the one in Palm Springs, I thought, man, those meditations are really deep, but I'm gonna microdose a little, you know, like to drop of acid or psilocybin went in there, and it didn't really have an impact on it. You know, it was so deep and
it's so
powerful
deep.
already. I realized, like, yeah, this is a different kind of thing. He found a way into the quantum.
He found a niche
that doesn't require you to do anything else to yourself other than the breathing practices and stuff like that. So yeah, really profound work. I agree. Wow, we have a lot in common. We like a lot of the same jams. All right, man, let's call it. Last thing is any websites, social media links, anything like that you want to shout out for people that want to look you up?
harrythehealer.net.
Easy breezy.
Easy breezy, simple website.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, great to see you. Let's go eat some food.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay.